Hello everyone and welcome to our English Advent calendar that is happening on this channel. And this year we are reading a Drarry fanfiction. The story is by Jolly Love. Thank you very much for letting me use it, and the name of the story is A Husband for Christmas. As always, everything is linked in the description. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss anything that's going on this channel in this wonderful month of December. And I really hope you'll enjoy this little story. Summary. Draco Malfoy is a single father after his wife dies due to an unknown illness. It has been 4 years and the ministry urges him to find another wife of good status so the Malfoy family won't lose the manor. However, time is short and Draco realizes that he can't be everywhere at once. Enter Pansy Parkinson, who refers him to a very good childcare expert. Without questioning, Draco hires the man, not knowing who he is or how his story will end. Door 1. Christmas time is here. Draco sighed as he hurried through the still dark corridors of Malfoy Manor. The day hadn't even officially started and he was already in a tricky situation. The letter from the ministry had appeared out of nowhere and given him an ultimatum. He could either be homeless with his son or marry someone by Christmas and keep the manor and his reputation. While the portrait growled at him for making noise so early in the morning, Draco couldn't think of keeping it down. His ancestors were the one to put him in this situation. If they hadn't chosen to stay on the bad side of war, he wouldn't have to be forced to marry again. Not that there weren't people interested. His business was booming and a lot of men were just looking for something stable and also to claim that they brought him back from the dark side. As Draco entered his study, he glanced at the only portrait that meant something to him, his late wife, Astoria Malfoy. She was the one who could have bragged with bringing him back to a somewhat normal life. Not that she would have bragged about it, but she still could have. He smiled softly and sat down by his desk, staring at the letter that had kept him up all through the early mornings. He could have just decided to stay unmarried, but he needed to do something for his son. Growing up on the streets was not something he wanted Scorpius to go through. Neither was having a father who only thought about his job. Sadly, he couldn't change the letter. He needed to stay on top of everything. Sighing, Draco grabbed the quill and decided to ask for help. He needed someone to look after his son, even if everyone who tried ended up leaving. Maybe his best friend, Pansy Parkinson, had a good idea.
"Draco, darling, you look dreadful. What happened to you?"
Pansy greeted him when she sat down in the French restaurant they were meeting at. Smiling weakly, he looked at her closely. She looked so happy and full of life that he couldn't refrain from being a little jealous. She seemed to be living the life he had wanted for himself. Nevertheless, he needed to get her help.
"I'm feeling terrible, thank you,"
he sighed.
"The ministry sent a letter. I need to either marry someone with a white vest again, or I'm being evicted."
Pansy frowned.
"They can't do that to you, though, can they?" "You know what I am, Pansy."
He didn't like to call himself a Death Eater. Not in public, anyways. Other people already were telling him what he was anyways.
"They can absolutely do that."
"So, when do you need to find someone? And when is the wedding?" The waiter came and took their orders. Draco didn't even have to open the menu to know what was being made here. It was his favorite restaurant, and whenever he needed to feel better, or he wanted to do something nice for himself, he would come here. Once the waiter left again, he finally answered the question.
"Christmas Eve."
Pansy frowned.
"Now? In like 24 days?
Her wide eyes almost made Draco laugh. If his situation hadn't been so dire, he would have definitely laughed about this reaction. But not now that it was his own life that he had to throw away.
"Yes."
They were silent, both lost in their own thoughts until the food came. Draco looked down at his beautifully cooked flamiche and felt no hunger at all. He instead took another sip of wine and turned to Pansy again. His best friend was in deep thoughts before she suddenly turned to him.
"What are you planning, then? I doubt you want to lose the manor." "Well," Draco chuckled humorously, "I wouldn't really mind losing the manor. I just don't want Scorpius to grow up without a home."
He looked at his food again, taking the fork, and ate a small piece.
"As for the marriage, I'll have to go and find a matchmaker. I don't have time for anything else."
"These are expensive and time-consuming, Draco. What about Scorpius?" Pansy asked before she started eating as well. Draco sighed again. There was no other way.
"I might to hire a caregiver again, but with Scorpius' track record, I might need to look for someone every other day."
Pansy smiled weakly. Yes, Scorpius was a sweet child, but he liked to scare everyone he didn't like into oblivion, and if they weren't careful, destroy their lives.
"If you're interested, I've got my 2 children in the hands of a really good caregiver whenever I don't have time. I could ask him if he'd like to earn more during Christmas time."
Frowning, Draco looked up from his food.
"And he's good." "Only the best for me, Draco. You know that." Pansy chuckled. "I'll tell you what. When I'm home, I'll send a letter to go and meet you and Scorpius tomorrow morning. Make it a trial day. If he doesn't work well with Scorpius, I'll pay for the day."
Draco raised his eyebrows.
Pansy usually didn't throw money around. "Are you so sure he'll do fine with Scorp?"
Grinning, his best friend nodded.
100%.
Sighing, Draco finally relented.
"Fine. Make it 7 in the morning."
To be continued.
So, my dear friends, this was the first door of our Advent calendar for this year's Christmas season, and I really hope you enjoyed it. This story will update every day until the 24th, so German Christmas, basically. And from then onwards, we'll go back to normal fanfiction stories that are not Christmas-related. I really hope you're looking forward to it. I am. And I really hope you stick along for the ride. Thank you for listening.